So again, going very quickly, we kind of discussed our agenda for the evening, and I'm going to move on and read our land acknowledgement. So we would like to provide a land acknowledgement at the beginning of this meeting as a way to give a moment of reflection and to demonstrate our recognition of Indigenous lands, treaties, and peoples. Let us think about what happened in the past and what changes can be made going forward in order to further the reconciliation process and address the injustices of the past and present. We acknowledge that the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit and is within the territory of Dish with One Spoon Treaty. We acknowledge that we are all treaty peoples, including those who came here as settlers, as either in this generation or generations past, and those of us who came here involuntarily, particularly those brought here to the lands as a result of the transatlantic slave trade and slavery. We pay tribute to those ancestors of African origin and descent. This is our community acknowledgement as well that we're going to read tonight, which is we want to take a moment and honor all the past and current work that has been done by local community agencies and groups around Jane and Finch. The work that is being done to develop these City of Toronto plans is deeply informed and aims to build on and amplify the work of local community agencies and groups who have been working for many years to make Jane and Finch thrive. So I will just hop right into it, which is, oh, sorry, actually, I'm supposed to send this to you, Zara. Go ahead.
Thanks, Maymoon. Hi, everyone. My name is Zara Joseph Wilson, and I'm from the City Planning Division. So on this slide, you'll see some of the commitments that the city staff team has made throughout this process. So one thing we've heard loud and clear is that we need to earn the trust of communities that we're working in. And so we've reviewed our processes and adapted to try to make this process as inclusive and respectful as possible. And so some of these commitments include, and of course they're not limited to these, investing in and acknowledging the expertise in the community by working with local community agencies like the Jane Finch Centre and partnering with community members to co-facilitate meetings and events. And I would just like to acknowledge Kamisha Thomas, who's a member of the Community Advisory Committee, and she's here as a co-facilitator this evening. So thank you for your time, Kamisha. We're also incorporating into our approach the principles for conducting research in the Jane Finch community, a document published by the Jane Finch Community Research Partnership. We're recognizing and honoring people's input, time, effort, and energy through honoraria, summarizing all meetings and posting them online so people know where their input has been captured. So you can find those meeting summaries on the project website under the meetings and events section. Additionally, we're reframing our approach through some of the key actions outlined in Toronto's action plan to confront anti-Black racism. And we're committed to sharing what we've heard and including some of those early policy ideas for feedback. And that's the purpose of this evening. Lastly, the Jane Finch Centre is reporting on all phase 1 engagement to City Council with us early next year. And so I'm just going to pass it back to Maymoon for now.
Thanks, Zara. So I'm going to, again, the second poll of the evening, I'm going to just launch it right now. And feel free to answer the question, which is this your first time hearing about the Jane Finch Initiative? And have you been to other consultations and events about the JFI? And you can answer if you like, and I will get going on this presentation and also come back to that poll. So the JFI is the City of Toronto's resident informed project plan for the future of Jane and Finch area so that residents and businesses are supported as the area changes over time with the opening of the Finch West LRT. Together with Jane and Finch communities and other interdivisional city staff team is developing a community development plan and a land use plan for the area. And so here is the study area that is being focused on by the city, which is essentially goes generally from Steeles down to Shepherd and from the 400 over to Black Creek. Along Finch, there will be 4 new LRT stops in the study area. The boundary for the new land use plan will be smaller, and that's the red line on the map. And that's where we anticipate updating the policies that govern land use because we expect the redevelopment to occur closer to the new LRT line. And so this is the 3 streams of work that were conducted throughout the process. And so the project has 3 streams of work. The orange box shows the community development plan. That plan will combine local, social, and economic development strategies to guide how communities are supported when growth and development occur. Oh, the poll just popped up. I'm just gonna close that. And the planning framework, which is the blue box, will be a land use plan to guide how areas should grow over time. With the new LRT line coming in, we expect some growth, and the land use plan will guide where that growth should be and what forms it should take. We will also identify investment needs in community facilities and infrastructure to serve current residents and support future growth. Both new plans are being developed with the community consultation engagement at their core. That's the green box up at the top. And the same community engagement process is informing both plans that it will be developed over the next couple of years. Oh, if you're just joining now, please mute yourself. Thank you. And so the community engagement approach, first and foremost, by the city that has been taken is to develop a partnership with the Jane Finch Centre, which I'm representing on behalf tonight. And the community-based facilitation is essential to building on the area's history of community-led organizing. We're also integrated consultation on all aspects of the initiative as well. So the Jane Finch Centre, for over 40 years, the organization has been strategically building the health and well-being of Jane and Finch in collaboration with residents, community leaders, community groups, organizations, and partners from within the local community and beyond, a multi-service community-based organization with a strong focus on poverty reduction through resident engagement, capacity building, and anti-oppression. Incorporated in 1976 through resident involvement, the center has been serving the community for the last 45 years with a resident-led board of directors. The center has always been a passionate and strategic organization, which has won numerous and best practice awards. And so again, Zara mentioned that we have one of our CAC members tonight, which I will let you, Kamisha, take over for talking on behalf of the CAC.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, in 2020, City Council, through the Jane and Finch Initiative, created the Community Advisory Committee, CAC. CAC is composed of a diverse body of our community representatives, our residents, stakeholders, and business representatives. We provide city oversight and accountability in creating engagement strategies and development plan. CAC is not a decision-making body, but an advisory group. We provide advice and feedback on policy direction regarding community development and the land use framework. We also advocate for interests and needs of the community to be reflected in city policies and the service that should be provided. We work with city staff, have open discussions of our concerns, share ideas and perspective, viewpoints, and seek to develop common ground. Our overall goal of CAC is to ensure community voice and input are being valued and respected. Thank you.
Thanks, Kamisha. I'm gonna move on. So some of the principles that were followed during the process were to incorporate community input in decision-making, recognizing and respecting the community as partners, prioritizing equity with a focus on equity-deserving groups, address existing community needs first while building something greater for the future, and learning from the past, being informed by the area's history, assets and lived experience as well, focusing on near-term gains and successes for existing residents as the area begins to change. These are some of the visions for the future, which came through all the conversations that we've had through meetings and events so far. And so you'll see that parks and public spaces were something that people want that are beautiful, connected, and welcoming, easy for everyone to get around in all seasons, access to a range of well-maintained community facilities and services, arts and culture are supported, celebrated, and encouraged, a vibrant atmosphere for shops, restaurants, services in walking distance. Current and future residents have access to affordable and good housing. Community initiatives address climate action and environmental racism, a place for full of opportunities and supports necessary for people and businesses to thrive. And neighborhood change process is transparent, collaborative, and sorry, I couldn't see that word, responsive. And so here are some of the places I'll take you through that have been mentioned and discussed through our meetings thus far, which is Fort Grove Park, Black Creek Ravine, inside the Driftwood Community Recreation Center, Yorkwoods Library, Yorkwoods Library Theater, the multiple murals across Jane and Finch, Jane Finch Mall, and Yorkgate Mall. So here's where we land on our first feedback discussion of the evening, which is what are your favorite places around Jane and Finch? And I also have a poll available for that, if I'm not wrong. Yes, I do. And which I'll launch right now, as you can see. So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen for a second. And because we have a lot of people online tonight, I'm going to have to unfortunately be a strict timer, like for the elections, keep it at 5 minutes for this discussion. And hopefully everyone can have a say either through the Jamboards, the chat, or the polls. So yeah, I guess an answer to that first question is, what is your favorite place around Jane and Finch? Somebody can raise their hand or actually unmute themselves and answer this question, but I'm going to be unfortunately timing you for the sake of keeping the presentation going. And I hope that doesn't discourage people from actually talking, by the way.
If I can, I'm just gonna jump in really quickly.
Yes, go ahead.
I'm dropping a link in the chat here. Oh, thanks, Leah. She's already done it. Just to give people a sense of how to use Jamboard if they haven't used it before. There's a toolbar on the left on this link, and that will give you a bunch of options on how to create comments. The two that you'll be using are mostly the sticky note feature and the open text field. And you can also use the little box at the top with the arrows to navigate between the boards. And that'll allow you to see all of the content that we're going to be asking questions about tonight. You don't have to use them all right now. We'll be dropping links throughout the presentation so that you can go directly to the content that we've been talking about. And if there are any hands up, I'm going to turn it back to Maymoon to continue to facilitate. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. So yeah, some things that we've seen again were those images of either Fort Grove Park or the community center, the theater. These are some things that people have highlighted in meetings as their favorite. And Terrell, you have your hand up. Great. I'll let you go for about 30 to 45 seconds.
Yeah, some of my favorite parts in the community are definitely the parks, and there's a lot of walkable parks here, and I hope people enjoy them more and use them more. There's one that I just recently found in the North Woods Park. I can't remember if that's the right name, but there's a, what do you call it? Like a calisthenics little part there that I hope other people use, but it's really cool. And it's in the middle of nowhere. And I don't know if there's enough information about that, but they have those smart trackers that you can use your QR code to get information about how to use them. And yeah, it's one of them.
Thanks, Tara. Like you're like right on time always. Thank you so much. Yeah, so again, anyone calling in or just joining in now, we're on our first discussion, or feedback, which is what's your favorite parts of Jane and Finch? And I'm already seeing in the chat that somebody said Black Creek Community Farm and the community gardens, Driftwood Parkette, Community Garden. Mildred, you are giving us everything. San Romano Way, Yorkwoods Library, and Black Creek Trail and Colmar Park. Thank you, Mildred. These are actually like great points. Yeah, so anyone can also go ahead, but again, I'm gonna have to like time you for the sake of moving on. We have about 4 minutes left in this discussion.
We have a comment on the Jamboard that says this has the best poutine in the area.
Okay, yeah. I'm also seeing Veronica, you put in the chat, good housing. Do you want to elaborate on that very quickly, or are you okay to?
Well, that's not exactly what I meant. What I meant, and it wasn't for this conversation, but in your vision, you said good housing, and I think it would be more, a better word would be decent housing. That's all. So
yeah, no, this I was gonna say this is also part of like this is sort of a feedback discussion. So yeah, this would also fit into this discussion as well.
Yeah, so that was just my opinion. You know, maybe someone else might have a better word, but good, to me, that is a nice word. But to be more impactful, decent, or to express the concerns around housing where some of the housing is just not up to standard. So that's why I say decent.
No, this sounds good. We'll definitely put that in the feedback. Thanks, Veronica. We already have someone who likes this in the chat as well. Thanks, Sam. But yeah, anyone else who has what do you connect to in Jane and Finch, and what's your favorite place around Jane and Finch? We've heard quite a bit so far. Oh, yes, William, go ahead. Oh, you're muted.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity. I wanted to just add that to the point that the lady that just spoke about it, that I live on Jane and Shoreham area, and as you might know, the condominium corporation on that corner is not in good condition at the moment, and we wanted to see if as a part of this project development, there is something that we can do, understanding the limitations of the city versus a condominium corporation, to see what we can do to help that community in the corner of Shoreham and Jane. So I'm hoping that during the project, it will be include some kind of project and develop it to help the community to be more beautiful and more safe.
Thank you, William. I don't know if somebody from the city also want to hop in on this. If you can go ahead if you like.
I'm sorry, did you say something to me again?
Oh no, I was saying somebody maybe from city staff would want to maybe comment on that, but if not, it's okay, we can move on. So the time, oh, Mildred, yes, so you'll be the last hand to go ahead and speak for this segment, but after your feedback, we'll move on. But thank you, go ahead.
I think I want to.
Sorry, I was.
You're good to go.
Okay, yeah. All right. Yeah, I just want to comment on the vision, because there's no like mention there of like food security, and then like community gardens, the farm, and all of this. It's like it's food insecurity is a big problem in the area, but like I know there's mention of housing, like those are equally like important, but food security is how is that like not mentioned, of like growing spaces and all that. There's like parks, I understand all of these are important, but food security is like a primarily like an equally important item. So I was just wondering about that.
Yeah, no worries. So yeah, what I just mentioned was some of the visions that residents had expressed during some meetings, but we definitely have a part 2 of this presentation and maybe discuss it. I don't know if somebody from the city would like to maybe add to Mildred's point. John.
Yes, Maymoon. Thank you, Mildred, for highlighting that. In the second half of the presentation, we will be identifying a lot of key main ideas that have come up. And yes, food security is definitely a main issue for the Jane Finch community.
Thank you, John.
Okay, perfect.
Can I talk some?
Okay, yeah, you can be the last person, and then we're going to move on if that's okay with you.
Okay, so whoever attending this meeting, I believe this is a meeting for just to vision. I mean, the dreaming something, not actually probably happening within a short period of time.
Yeah, so I mentioned this evening is sort of just like kind of like a summary, a giant big summary of what we've been doing for the phase 1 of this project so far. Is that what you're referring to, or you this is not so? Oh, John, I think you're unmuted. Unless you want to talk, I don't know if you want to talk or not. But yeah, so this is essentially just a giant wrap up of a discussion of what we've heard in phase 1 so far and what we've heard from residents. So I don't know if that's maybe what you've been referring to, or is I don't know, what are you? Okay, but yeah, so we're gonna move on, but there's still ways to continue maybe on this segment of the feedback, with definitely the jam boards and definitely through the chat, but I'm gonna share my screen again. And Zara, I believe you are part 2 of the presentation, and I will hand that off to you. Oh, Zara, are you there?
Sorry about that. It threw me into full screen and I couldn't get to my mute and unmute.
Sorry about that.
So hey everybody, I'm back again, and in this next part of the presentation, we're going to share some of the early policy ideas that we've been developing for both the community development plan and the land use plan, based on all of the input we've received from the community so far. If you can go to the next slide, Maymoon, it shows the project phasing, and we're currently wrapping up phase 1 of 3. So over the last year, but especially in the last 6 months, we've heard from community members at over 20 virtual meetings through our online engagement portal and on social media, as well as by phone and email. And we're taking everything that we've heard and putting it into an ideas report that will go before City Council in April of next year. So at that time, we hope to get direction from City Council to further develop those ideas into a draft secondary plan, which forms part of the land use plan, and a draft community development plan. And at each step along the way, we will have many more opportunities for community feedback and input. And I just want to remind people, if they're just joining, if they could put themselves on mute when they're not actively speaking, that would be really helpful. So on the next slide. So here are some of the themes that we've been developing policy ideas for, because these are really what we've been hearing about through our consultations so far. And so for those just joining by phone, I'm going to read them out. They include inclusive economic development, social development, and arts and culture for the community development plan. And on the land use planning side, there's parks and public realm, mobility, which is really referring to how people get around, housing, community services and facilities, urban design, heritage, and climate action. And so we're going to present 1 to 2 slides on each of these themes, and we'll be pausing for your feedback, comments, and input as we go. And so for now, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Dan, who's going to tell you about early policy ideas related to inclusive economic development.
Okay, thanks, Sarah. Hi, everybody. I'm Dan Rosen. I'm a policy advisor in the Economic Development and Culture Division at the City of Toronto. So have been involved in developing this policy theme of inclusive economic development that will mostly fit in the community development plan, but also has implications for the updated land use planning framework. So through the phase 1 engagement that Zara talked about, we've heard enough, I think, to develop a few high-level policy ideas that we intend to pick up on and really develop further through phase 2 of the project with additional community engagement all the way along. So next slide. So these are some of these high-level policy ideas that we've heard about and where residents and city staff think the city might have a role to play. So they are maintaining and supporting community serving businesses. We've heard that in addition to residential displacement that people are concerned about, there can also be commercial displacement as a neighborhood changes. And there's some concern that businesses that serve the community and have been there for a long time and are potentially locally owned will be challenged to maintain their operations. And so this policy idea is looking at what the city can do to preserve and support those businesses and future independent businesses, and especially in some market categories of necessities, so food, doctors and dentists office, financial services, and so on. And I'll come back to this one briefly at the end. Another policy idea is community benefits and social procurement. So in other parts of the city where there has been large capital investments or infrastructure builds, there have been commitments to also hire and train people, maybe that live locally, as part of those projects, and to engage in social procurement, which is in buying the goods and services required for that project. The main contractor or the city would look at local suppliers or diverse suppliers to provide those goods and services. So this theme is about looking at what investments could be upcoming in Jane and Finch, and can there be commitments to community benefits, either from the city Or can we encourage or influence other public sector entities who might be doing that? Another policy idea is engaging large employers, and this could really be engaging all employers. As with public investments that bring jobs, we know there are a lot of employers and businesses looking to expand their hiring. Some of them are looking for their hiring at local candidates and how to find potential candidates and to maybe to provide training on the job and career pathways. So how can we encourage employers to engage, especially when they're looking for job candidates anyways? Private sector businesses also do procurement, so can they engage in with local companies to supply the goods and services that they need? The flip side of that is workforce development. So can the city support the network of employment agencies and job developers in the area to get candidates ready for employment opportunities that might become available? Next policy idea, we've grouped a few things here. Entrepreneurship support, social enterprise, and space. So we've heard about a lot of startup businesses, many of which are run maybe out of people's residences, looking for space to grow their business, maybe looking for support to find grants or to develop business plans. Is there an opportunity for more social enterprise supports in the area? So these are enterprises that are providing something, but also have a social development or environmental mission. And then the final one is a bit different. It's about the structures and partnerships to advance the policy and program ideas. So the ongoing partnerships and resources that are required to actually realize inclusive development opportunities. So this is about sort of the long-term resources, not just the policies that the city might implement, but the long-term funding, other resources and partnerships that need to be developed to advance these things. So I said I'd come back to that first one, the maintaining and supporting community serving businesses. So all of these here, we recognize are fairly high level. They don't have specific actions associated with them yet. This is the result of the phase 1 of work. Through phase 2, the intention is to think about it, and again, in close partnership with community, to further develop these into more specific policies and programs. So within that one, just as an example, through phase 2, we can look at zoning, that if there is redevelopment, that the city could potentially require or encourage the replacement of commercial space and spaces that are that will contain those businesses that local residents rely on, and maybe space for independent businesses to get started. There's a whole host of recently approved Main Street recovery and rebuild programs approved by City Council. So helping companies take their business online. Other programs that used to only be available within business improvement areas like facade improvements or local events that are now available across the city. Some people probably know about work in Eglinton West and Little Jamaica that's looking at challenges faced by businesses there, and the city looking at policy tools it has to do that same thing, maintain and support community serving businesses. So these two projects can potentially learn from each other through phase 2 as we go forward. And then things like recently council approved the Black Food Sovereignty Plan. So food insecurity was already mentioned. That's a strategy that's been approved, looking for places to pilot more specific actions, so that the Jane and Finch could be a place where the Black Food Sovereignty Plan, where some pilot actions are developed, again, as part of the Jane Finch Initiative. So I'll pass it to, I think, my colleague John to talk about the social development policy ideas.
Thanks, Dan. Next slide, please. So good evening, everybody. My name is John Smith, Manager of Community Development in one of the 3 partnering divisions, Social Development, Finance Administration. As my colleague Dan has said, that the ideas before you are kind of a conglomerate of a number or our main ideas, but we've taken a lot of actions and we've tried to summarize a lot of input from community thus far through the visioning phase of this process, and tried to pull together some main ideas that can be used to shape phase 2 of the Jane Finch Initiative. And in phase 2, just to repeat again, it is about looking at these ideas and looking at the types of actions, recommendations, and resources that are necessary to be cited in a plan that will be supporting investments over long term and identifying opportunities short term and long term for the Jane Finch community. I'm going to walk through each of the ideas and then give a little bit of a background where necessary. First, starting with prioritizing opportunities and investments for equity-seeking groups. Overwhelmingly, the response from community partners, from grassroots groups, from residents that have provided feedback has been that we need to have a plan that is equitable and that is geared towards prioritizing resources and investments to those who face multiple challenges, historic discrimination, and structural discrimination within the community. We also want to prioritize resident and grassroots group participation in decision-making in the Jane Finch Initiative and other plans. So the goal is to have a larger community development plan to be paired with the secondary plan, but we know that there will be other plans along the way, and we will, the goal is to leverage participation, input, and partnership with resident leads, grassroots groups. They're essential to the community moving forward. Next idea is investing in creating a welcoming community for newcomers. So we know that, Jane Finch is a diverse community and a community that is, as the city motto goes, diversity is part of its strengths. And we want to recognize that, but we also know that there are many barriers that newcomers encounter in Jane Finch community in terms of settlement, in terms of participation, in terms of access to services, and that should be a priority as well. Investing in programs and access for children and youth living with a disability. Again, if we have equity as a principle, we are identifying that children and youth, and I will say, inclusive of families that support children and youth living with a disability, should be prioritized in terms of resources and access to those services that are definitely needed. Improving access to community spaces for grassroots groups and nonprofit organizations and social enterprise initiatives as well is an area for of priority. It's an idea, a main idea that we're putting forward, and also developing an evaluation matrix for community investments and funding. And so this could include as well more knowledge and more awareness of investments that are happening in the community, happening in all sectors, nonprofit, for-profit, understanding how that investment works, and also more clarity and understanding of the investments and their benefit to the community. So there is more understanding of, whether, as I said, whether it's programs and services, whether it's donations, the impact of that and the importance of that over long term for the Jane Finch community. Next slide, please. As well, the importance of accessing spaces is highlighted here, and improving access for those spaces. We've heard from residents who hold a minute as somebody needs to mute. I think someone has joined us. Your phone is on, or okay, there we go. improve access to outdoor and indoor spaces and programs for all ages. And I will say as well, I think the park spaces, the natural spaces, as well as indoor space access, whether it's community rooms or hubs or other common areas, are a priority, because it's important to not only have access, but to have opportunities for growth and development and initiatives that really connect residents. Invest in education programs, including ongoing science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. Not only programs for education, but also for training, employment skills, certification programs for residents. That's been listed as a main idea as well. Investing in food spaces, spaces for food access, and community-led food initiatives. The Black food sovereignty policy was mentioned, but there's a need for not only citywide policies in their interconnection and their connection to Jane Finch, but Jane Finch specific initiatives that support Jane Finch residents' access and also leadership in terms of food insecurity, the issue of food insecurity. The issue of data equity was also mentioned in terms of access to not only the Wi-Fi.
Welcome to Fastly, where we make websites, the Internet of Things, API.
Okay, I'll start again. Invest in free access to Wi-Fi, but not only the access to Wi-Fi, but also an investment in the tech equipment and the programs that support not only the use of tech equipment, but also developing skills around using the equipment, the programs, the navigation of not only social media, but also information that is available online. So many things, so many services are moving to online access, but so there's a necessary to not only have the equipment and access available, but the skill supports for skills and abilities of all ages, people of all ages to access. And finally, invest in community-led, local-led community safety initiatives. Community safety is a key area, and the participation of residents and other community partners in determining the best approaches to community safety, the most community-friendly approaches to community safety is important, as well as programs and approaches that support the capacity of all individuals to feel safe within their community and feel supported within their community. Thank you very much. And I will ask my colleague, let's see, can't remember who's next. Zara, who's next?
Well, it's me and it's not me, but it's my co-facilitator for the evening, Kamisha, who will be running this second feedback discussion period. So Kamisha, the floor is yours, and then I'll stop sharing the screen.
Okay, thank you, Miriam. Okay, so our feedback question is, what do you think we have missed? What do you think, and have we missed anything? In the chat, I saw someone had mentioned the Island Garden Center, which is, let's go back a little bit. So a fruit and vegetable garden dome, that would be nice to have. So a pilot project for that, and they're going forward. Someone also mentioned the LRT. They don't think there's any community workers there, members working there. So we also have any questions or any ideas from the community. What do you think, anything have been missed so far? We have 5 minutes. We can put your ideas in the Jamboard, in the chat, or you can put your hands up and we can have 30 seconds for your ideas in the chat right now. Go ahead.
I'm just going to quickly jump in and give people another quick tutorial or how-to on the Jamboard here. So I'm going to paste a couple of links into the chat again. And those are our inclusive economic development and social development slides. And if it's okay, I'm just going to share my screen. Okay. So I think everyone can see that. I'm going to take us to this little tool right here, which is super helpful. It'll allow you to navigate through all of the slides that we're going to be talking about this evening. And right at the front on this first slide, we have a how-to. So just here on the left is your toolbar. If you want to add a sticky, use this little icon and you can add a quick note. And I'm just going to show you how that will pop up here. Or if you want to type something that really does not fit in the sticky, you can also use the open text tool here. Oh, I think Leah is helping me out here by showing as well. And there, it's just there on the left.
Insects, diseases, and then it'll eventually.
And for now, I can see Mildred has her hand up, so I'm going to stop sharing and we can go into the facilitated discussion.
Mildred, you can go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I just mentioned in the chat, but if I can elaborate about the like programs for seniors, especially like day programs. I've seen in other communities, there's day programs for seniors, particularly like indoors, like gym, like exercise. And I think I'm aware there's one, but I think it's like way south of Jane and Finch, and there's nothing like immediate to Jane and Finch. And I believe we have a lot of seniors in the area who need access, and we need to like bring that space to this intersection. Also, like we should utilize like gardening spaces to hold all of this. A lot of our seniors come from like a farming background, and they are not necessarily like gym people like a lot of young people, you know, but they love gardening, and it's very good for them. Like we've been hosting like seniors gardening program at Black Creek Farm, and it addresses like social isolation because they meet with their friends. It addresses physical, they eat healthy food, and mental health. So if we can have that, but in itself, like day programs, I don't see a day program in, maybe I don't, I'm not aware, I haven't like checked everything, but yeah, a day program for seniors would be good.
Okay, thank you, Mildred. And then we also have Veronica in the chat. You go ahead, Veronica. Okay. Veronica, can you hear us? Okay. In the chat, we also have what land of redevelopment is planned for Shore and Jane and Finch area. So if anyone wants to take that on, we have from Lena, that's a question in the chat. Okay. Again, anyone else in regards to what do you think was in regards to what Dan and John said? And do you think that we have missed anything? And we also have from some bike share TO, how many bikes do we have to station in Jane and Finch? That's another idea too. I think my daughter used it once before, so it's a good idea of the bike share. Anyone else? I still see Veronica hands up, and I know she's still here.
Misha, if there are questions coming up and city staff can answer, if we don't have the answer for you right away, we'll make sure we put it in the meeting summary. We are collecting all of the questions, and we may have to get some answers from colleagues who aren't on the call, but we'll make sure that we answer them all in the meeting summary if we're not doing it out loud tonight.
Okay. In the Jamboard, we see that we do have some, we collected the pilot programs for long-term stability in the into the Northwest. There's also that would be great. There's farming, mention of food security directly in the vision from the city. And again, the seniors, access to seniors programs for seniors, indoor gym space and day programs for them also.
Sorry, Kamisha, I just noticed that Dan also put a response into that question, I think, from prior. So maybe Dan, you want to answer in person, I guess?
Sure, yeah. So just to say in the chat, the Finch West LRT is being built by Metrolinx, which is the provincial transit agency, through a construction consortium called Mosaic. You know, I'm reluctant to speak to it. I don't know too much. I think they have made some commitments to community benefits. I don't know the, you know, exact parameters in terms of their commitments or too much about a number of people hired or any other outcomes. But yeah, but that policy idea is to, you know, we could in a more coordinated way, all the public entities that have projects that could potentially provide community benefits, to know what those are, and for us to learn from each other. So I put in the chat, the city is being careful. It can't really commit to community benefits on projects that it's not leading or funding, but that's not to say that there's some role between governments and public entities to advance the concept of community benefits and learn from past projects.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Okay, we also have in the chat from Sam, how many pilots do we have going on in Jane and Finch that to try new and creative initiatives? Is our community a space where we, the council, try new things? Anyone from the city wants to tackle that one? We're coming up with 1 more minute for this section, and then we'll continue back on to, I believe it's Zara, who's going to be continuing. So anyone wants to answer that quickly, and then we continue on.
I'll offer a quick answer, and I think it's a very good question. I think as part of developing a plan as well, we need to assess what's already happening. And we know that there's a lot of initiatives happening, but we need to actually map that out. And from what I'm hearing from other questions, there, you know, whether it's seniors, older adults programs, there could be a lot better awareness of those programs, where they are happening. And as well, looking at the importance of creating new creative initiatives that are developed in partnership with community. So I think that's a very good point, Sam, that you brought up.
Okay, thank you, John. And we'll go back over to Zara to continue. Zara?
I'm actually going to pass it to Dan, who's going to tell you about arts and culture.
Okay, thanks, Zara. And let me quickly just address David's question in the chat. So the idea of providing entrepreneurship support in space, you know, I think we're looking to do that across the city, but that theme within the Jane Finch Initiative would be specifically to support local residents of the area as part of the city to grow their business and get businesses off the ground. So I can come back to that if we discuss later. But yeah, so the third policy theme that we're grouping in the community development plan is arts and culture, very much related to both inclusive economic development and social development, which are the other two. So next slide, these are the high-level policy ideas that have emerged in the arts and culture space through a few consultations focused on that. So the first one, supporting local arts and culture programming. You know, it's clear that people want the city to continue to support arts and culture programming and to make sure that it's in a sustained way. So more specifically, you know, that's about funding art for artists and reducing barriers to apply for arts and culture project funding. It's about how and where the city delivers its support to artists and partners. So, you know, moving forward, there's a possibility of implementing a new LASO or local arts service organization as a possible policy response to take this policy idea forward to support local arts and culture programming. And then it could also be about the potential for citywide cultural offerings and festivals like cultural hotspots or Nuit Blanche to be extended to other parts of the city, including Jane and Finch. Then this second policy idea, to retain existing public art and promote new art in public spaces. So that's related to the first one. This could be local artists who are creating that public art. But this is more generally about having access to art for residents and being surrounded by art in public places, and what the city can do to support that. So whether that's the murals that have come up and that we've heard are very important in the community, or new art installations to be developed at transit stops or as part of any new development, and festivals we've heard about as a very important carrier of arts and culture in public spaces, either festivals that have taken place in the past or support for new ones. And then the last one, improving access to space for artists in the arts. This is very much sort of a sub-theme of that overall, that first theme, is support for local arts and culture programming. But we've pulled it out because space has been identified as such a key factor. So this could be about, the city helping to broker relationships with landowners or occupants of spaces to maybe provide access to arts organizations, and could that be expanded? And then this is also the policy idea, which through phase 2, I think covers the ongoing discussions about the Jane Finch Community Hub and Center for the Arts idea, where there's a parcel of land that's available for this vision to move forward. And this theme, this policy idea through the next phase will be about an ongoing discussion for the city to see how the city can support the community-led vision for that hub and the organizing that has taken place that's been community-led, and that predates the Jane Finch Initiative work. So those are some high-level policy ideas in arts and culture.
So we are now at our third, I think. Yeah, Kanisha, go ahead.
Okay, hi. Okay, so again, what Dan has just said, with an idea, what do you think and what have they missed, or what have we missed in the presentation? So I see in the Jamboard, we have art gallery featuring primary local artists. The mural art must be Instagram worthy. The nude Blanche installation at the Finch is really cool. So that's the night lights. So again, we do have 5 minutes for anyone who wants to jump in the chat and talk to us and what they think is missing and what do they, or you can put your information in the Jamboard, or you can put it in the chat also. Okay, anyone else want to add something here? Okay, no. Someone that says, for the prior to creating physical spaces, the city should start by creating community-led online space for artists to network, connect, share ideas, work together to slowly build up a physical space. Okay, that's a good idea. Anyone else? Also, Mildred says food culture. Can we do farmers market in our neighborhood to showcase cultural relevant food? That's a good one. Thank you, Mildred. Okay. Anything else? If we can do 1 more minute, if no one wants to say anything, we'll move on. Okay, 1 more minute.
Terrell had a comment about creating more community-led online spaces for artists to network, connect, and share ideas. And that way they can slowly build up to a physical space.
We also had from Jacqueline saying that there's lack for older age group 15 up and for children.
So maybe I would just say to the to Terrell and Mildred's points, yeah, take those as input, both the online platform for the arts and farmers markets and food have come up, I think, but maybe not as much in our arts and culture events. So I think that's a good link. And yeah, take both of those as great input moving forward.
Okay, all right, so we'll continue to park in public realm, and I believe Zara, you're next, so go ahead. Okay, thank you, Dan.
All right, so we've also heard loud and clear in all of our consultations that people want safe, beautiful, clean, and fun parks. And people really value the parks that are here, and they want to make sure that they're protected, enhanced, and better connected. So we have three main policy ideas to address that. And the first one is to grow the Parks and Open Space Network. And we would do that through building a new park near the Jane and Finch intersection as the area is redeveloped. We know that this is something people want because of the success of initiatives like Corner Commons, which many of you have either worked to create or may have visited in the last summer. And we would also design new parks for people of all ages and abilities to use year-round. And we would consider the needs of the diverse communities in Jane and Finch when designing those spaces. We've heard clearly that not everyone has equitable access to parks and to the facilities in those parks. And so we intend to ensure that community voices are heard when it comes to designing and programming any new parks. The second would be to improve existing parks. And that would look like introducing new active recreation or exploring opportunities to introduce new active recreation facilities and more spaces for community gathering. We've heard that people want skate parks, outdoor gyms, places to rest, play areas for different ages, places for high school kids to gather, and things like that. We also recognize and celebrate that this is an opportunity to celebrate Indigenous identities in public spaces. And the last is to build connections between public spaces, parks, and trails. And the way that we might do that is to ensure pathways and trails are accessible, usable in all seasons, well lit, and that they feel safe for all users. And there's a wonderful ravine system, and we want to ensure that everybody has the ability to use them and feel safe and comfortable. We would also fill in the gaps in the paths and trail system, such as building the northerly extension of the Black Creek Trail and connections to the Humber River Trail system. Next slide, please. And then on the topic of mobility, so that's getting around on foot, using mobility devices, on transit, by bike, or by car. We've heard that we need to apply an equity lens to all decision-making in this respect. So that means looking first at where existing needs aren't being met and improving those conditions where areas undergo change. So this means we're looking at things like wait times, travel times, connections, and working on how to improve access so that people have more equitable transportation options. And some of these efforts are led by other agencies like the TTC or Metrolinx. And in that case, we're looking at how city policies and procedures can support that work. Next, we have to create complete streets. So a complete street is safe and comfortable for people on foot, on transit, bikes, and cars, and using mobility devices. And as new streets get built, perhaps some of the larger sites near the intersection are redeveloped or existing streets are improved. We'll be building them to make sure that they're complete streets for all users. We also want to make walking and cycling infrastructure safer and more accessible. So that would look like year-round maintenance of sidewalks, bike routes, and streets, and improving the public realm along major streets, including near transit stops. We need to create more mobility choices and improve multimodal connectivity. And one thing that we are looking at, and just to kind of touch on something that's been mentioned in the chat, is to improve mobility options. And one option that we're looking at is to get bike share facilities near new transit stops and throughout the neighborhood. Lastly, new development should support direct and safe walking and cycling connections to transit, shopping, services, and local destinations. So when we get development applications, we can ensure that the design and configuration of buildings and sites contributes to good walking, cycling, and transit connections. Okay, so we're going to pause here for feedback on the topics of parks and public realm and mobility. And if you just refer to the chat links again, we're happy to continue to add those comments to Jamboard. Or if you'd rather comment aloud, just raise your hand and Kamisha will give you the chance to unmute yourself and speak.
All right, so again, what do we think? Do you think have we missed anything in regarding to getting around and mobility in the Jane and Finch area? In the Jamboard, we do have how can we reduce traffic during rush hour? I believe William also had his hands up, so go ahead, William. You're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
All right, thank you so much. One topic, a very important, it was mentioned, the parks, but I would like to focus the attention in the overall use of the park year around. So for that, I would like to whoever is on the city to pay attention at the working hours of the washrooms and restroom facilities for the people to be able to wash their hands, be able to access to fresh water and a safe park. And I'm hoping that this new initiative leads to a citywide reform of the use of the parks, especially the facilities of the washrooms, which I noticed sometimes there is no accessibility. There is no accessibility to water, to dry your hand, especially on the winter days. I believe that there is a large group of city workers working during the winter time, and they should accommodate the opening of the washrooms at all times for people to be able to use it in a safety, responsible way, where we can issue policies to avoid vandalism and just to make it secure with the combination with the police or other resources that help us just to be safe and to access the parks.
Okay, thank you, Williams. That's great. Safety first, everyone. Thank you. If anyone wants to
Oh, Kanisha, you're muted. You muted yourself.
Okay, sorry about that. I was trying to move something off my screen. Yeah, sorry about that. So yes, thank you, Williams. I don't know if anyone from the city would like to address Williams' comment. If not, then we can also, there is a few more ideas on the Jamboard that people have stated in regards to mobility.
Just comment, Kamishi, just in regards to Williams' comment about facilities and parks. This is something we are going to take look closely at, William. We've heard about issues related to maintenance and state of good repair of facilities. And so we will be looking closely at and listening to people on where they think there will be needs for not just the state of the facilities, but where new facilities may be needed, such as washrooms or drinking water stations, garbage bins, enhanced lighting, and these sorts of things within the parks, along the trails, etc. So thank you for that excellent point, and it's well noted.
Okay, thank you. There's also another comment in the Jamboard. Thank you, Andrew. This neighborhood is one of the few without an ice skating ring. The city can partner with partners to ensure this activity is accessible, or even providing skates. I do see that my children want to do skating, but there's no skating ring in this area. So that's one thing that we as a community would like to see. Okay, also we have anyone, 2 more minutes, and Mildred, you have your hand up.
Yeah. In terms of like safety in the Black Creek Trail, like my family have done a lot like biking there and walking. Compared to other like city trails, there's not a lot of families like walking and utilizing that facility. I don't know why, but one time one of the mom friends that we have, family friend, like she commented like, hey, it's like it's very dangerous. I don't know what she encountered on the trail. I was able to like go, but she didn't feel safe like going there. So maybe that is my question. And then at Halmar also, there have been like 2 occasions where that toilet, the portable toilet has been burned down. Burned down and vandalized. And there have been like also like beer bottles, broken beer bottles in the tennis courts. So this is a close park to my area, and it's a beautiful park. It's utilized a lot by seniors. I see them like morning. they have like some sort of like, you know, medical condition like paralysis or so, but they utilize that a lot to like go around and have their exercise. But like my question would be like, yes, in terms of like security for the parks, how do we make that our parks more secure, and you know, how do you address the vandalism too?
Okay, thank you, Mildred. Okay, and also quickly in the chat, we do have a comment from Veronica stating that some of the trees in the ravine are diseased at the end of London and Green Park, which is at Driftwood and York Gates. So maybe that's something that the city could look into also. For the initiative, are there any plans to build any splash pads for children in the community? That's from Song Lim. Again, is there any going to be a skating ring built for Downsview Park? Okay. Okay, and then also people are saying that they wanted more tennis courts. I do believe that we have a tennis court on Driftwood between the building, but nothing accessible anywhere else. Okay, I believe we're another time for this feedback, and then we'll be going to Parks and Realms with Zara again. Again, people, if you want to leave your comments, you can still leave your comments in the Jamboard or in the chat, and we'll continue on with our presentation. Zara?
Do we have the slides? Thank you. Okay, so housing is a crucial issue, and we've been hearing that people are very concerned about affordability and about how being able to stay and thrive in the area, even as it changes with the new LRT coming in. And so we will use a suite of existing and new policies and programs to address displacement, improve and protect existing rental housing, and create new affordable housing. So on the slides here, there's a list of existing and new policies and programs to address displacement, improve and protect, there's a list of housing policies on the slide, and we can share explanations of these policies in the summary, but I'm just going to highlight a few of them that are of particular relevance, including inclusionary zoning, the rental replacement policy, and the multi-unit residential acquisition program, which is to protect existing affordable homes, otherwise known as MURA. So inclusionary zoning is a new policy that is going to City Council for approval. This policy will make it mandatory for certain new developments to provide affordable housing, and that would be secured for 99 years. Rental replacement is a policy that is already in place in our official plan. So that means that when there is, sorry?
Yeah, give me the camera.
Is someone?
Where the camera?
I'll find it, Zara, carry on.
The rental replacement policy in the official plan requires that at any point when there is a proposal to demolish 6 or more rental units in order to build something else, the policy requires that those rental units are replaced in the new development, like for like replacement, and the existing tenants must be compensated and provided the right to return at similar rents. Lastly, MURA, or multi-unit residential acquisition. This program would provide grant funding incentives like exemptions from property taxes and application fees to qualified nonprofit and Indigenous housing groups to support them to purchase and renovate existing market rental properties, and to ensure that they can remain permanently affordable for people with low and moderate incomes. And just so people on the phone know, some other programs and policies that are on the slide here that you can raise your hand and ask questions about include rental intensification, the large site policy, and Section 37, social housing replacement, expanding housing options in neighborhoods, otherwise known as EHON, the Housing Now Initiative, the Subcommittee on the Protection of Affordable Housing, the Modular Supportive Housing Initiative, and the Open Door Affordable Housing Program. So I'm just going to go to the next slide and talk about some of the ideas that we want to hear feedback on. And so specifically in Jane and Finch, we want to aim to provide for a diversity of housing types, forms, tenures, and affordability when there are applications for new developments, supporting larger households by requiring family-sized units in new buildings, encouraging multi-tenant housing and additional units in areas designated neighborhoods. And these areas appear as yellow in the official plan mapping, and they tend to mostly be single-family housing. We want to prioritize affordable housing on publicly owned land, identify where improvements are needed in existing rental buildings so that we can secure these improvements in new developments on the same lot when they're proposed. And we want to support community land trust and co-ops in retaining and securing new affordable housing. And so we're just going to, again, drop a link in the chat so that you can comment directly on these slides through Jamboard. And once again, if you just want to use your voice and speak out loud and you're joining by phone, press *9 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute when called upon.
All right, so anyone has any, what do you think and what we're missing? In the Jamboard, we have affordable option for first-time home buyers. Is the vision statement, again, we said that we should use decent housing to good housing. Anyone in the questions or in the chat would like to comment on housing?
We have a staff person here, Christine Ono, who works on housing policy, and she's going to respond to some of them as the questions that are coming in the chat. So keep them coming and we'll make sure we get you some answers.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay.
So, hi everyone, my name is Christine. I work in housing policy. Nice to meet all of you. I see Christine has a question in the chat whether there are affordable options for first-time home buyers. So I know this city has a citywide program that offers land transfer tax exemptions or rebates for first-time home buyers, but I wanted to point to inclusionary zoning, which Zara mentioned. It's a new tool that we're looking to implement in the city, and it'll require new developments to provide either affordable rental housing or affordable ownership housing. And that new affordable housing, ownership housing that will be created will be offered to first-time home buyers.
Okay, and someone was asking about rent to own. Is there an option for rent to own housing?
That's a good point. That's not something, a program that I'm currently aware of as one of the city's initiatives. But I know in the past, it's been something that that has been quite successful.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Christine. Okay, Donna, I believe she said she lives in the Jane and Finch area at the Clubhouse Court. I was wondering on the south side of Finch and Oakdale, where where the old Umbrella Hospital is the building going up? And sure, there's going to be an old age home, which I guess is an seniors home. Is that true? Anyone from the city would like to comment and respond to Donna?
Yes, I'll respond, Donna. Yes, that's true. The provincial government is building a long-term care facility at that location.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. Okay. And someone else says in the Jamboard, is someone on the phone? Okay. Someone asks also, is there any plans for the social townhouse at the Shoreham Court? Okay. I see a lot in the chat also. Said if rent to own was successful before, why there's no initiative now for that program in their area? Okay. And what is the TCHC plan for Edgeley Village, Driftwood and Shoreham for revitalizing the aging townhouse infrastructure? Also, what options are there for residents to put forth their ideas for zero displacement revitalization similar to Andrea Park? Any comments from the city regarding that?
Just to reiterate, if we can't answer tonight, we'll get answers for you in the meeting summary. Okay. And we're collecting all.
Okay, thank you, Leah. Okay. All right, okay. Anyone has any questions? We can go forward to the next slide.
Hi.
Which is again, hello? Is there someone to say something?
Yes. Hi. I just wanted to know what is the plan
Hello?
for the building inside of Full Grove Crescent? Are they going to build affordable houses there inside Full Grove Crescent?
Okay, anyone from the city would like to address I
Hi.
apologize if I don't pronounce the name correctly.
This is Henry from City Planning. I review development applications, and I'll try to respond to the Fairgrove question. There is a development application submitted by Toronto Community Housing. They are seeking to revitalize that entire site, which will include both the replacement and the addition of affordable housing units for TCH.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, and we're going on now to the next slide, and Zari can go ahead.
Okay. There's just two more topics that we're going to get through. I just want to do a quick time check. We're at 7:24 here. So if we have any extra time and you find that your questions or comments don't really fit into the topics that we talked about earlier, we're going to stay on the line and do a little bit of an open Q&A so that you can ask us any of your questions or have any of your comments included in the consultation record. So with respect to community facilities and services, community services and facilities, sorry, these are things like childcare centers, libraries, community centers, schools, and public services like public health and employment services. And we look at parts of the city where growth is expected. And so when we do studies like this, we examine what community services and facilities are needed in the area already and what new ones might be needed. And the policy ideas here are to maintain and enhance existing community services and facilities. And some of these are, for example, the improvements to York Woods District Library, which includes a major renovation, including interior design upgrades to the theater and reprogramming to meet updated needs. The next would be to create new community services and facilities to meet existing needs and accommodate growth. So some of the priorities in the area include more affordable multi-purpose community space, accessible and welcoming spaces for youth, gathering spaces for seniors, and affordable space for artists. The Jane and Finch area is also identified by Children's Services as a high priority area for new nonprofit licensed childcare spaces. We also are going to be seeking opportunities to introduce new active recreation facilities, as I mentioned before. And just as a reminder, some of those priorities already identified by the community include outdoor gyms, fitness equipment, skateboard parks, splash pads, playgrounds, and basketball courts, as well as other facilities for all ages and abilities. We want to leverage development to achieve community benefits. So development can contribute to new and improved facilities, either on-site or off-site, such as projects like the Hub. And we want to ensure that existing nonprofit community facilities are maintained or replaced. Lastly, with respect to community services and facilities, we really want to encourage partnerships and co-location opportunities between the public, private, and nonprofit sectors. Slide. And lastly, we have, or not last, we have a couple more. So as new buildings are proposed, we look at elements of the design and placement of buildings to ensure that they respond to local conditions and contribute to the neighborhood in ways that go beyond just the building itself. So we want new buildings to create a vibrant public realm, which means making sure that buildings are designed to frame public streets, parks, and open spaces, and have active uses at ground level, so it's pedestrian friendly. And we want the public realm, including sidewalks and streets, to be able to accommodate trees, planters, public art, and amenities like seating and lighting. New development should respond to the local context, and that means that we want to be ensuring that we're providing a mix of building types and scales like townhouses, low-rise apartment buildings, and mid-rise buildings along street edges, and carefully placing towers at key locations near transit so that they respond to the needs of the community and complement the look and feel of the surrounding neighborhoods in Jane and Finch. We want to make sure that building design contributes to a comfortable environment. That means that buildings are located in ways that protect access to sunlight, reduce and mitigate wind impacts, and provide enough privacy and safe connections to parks and open spaces. We also want to create beautiful, safe, and accessible spaces and places. And that means that we're looking at how buildings and the spaces around them are designed to create spaces that are inclusive and accessible, well-lit, safe, inviting, and open to the community by discouraging barriers to entry like gates and fences. And this also includes highlighting the area's distinct history and cultural diversity, as well as creating a pride of place through high standards of design and including heritage conservation and spaces to showcase the talents of local artists. All of these kinds of design considerations will be a part of the detailed consultations that we'll do over the next year or so in phases 2 and 3. And so I'm going to pause again just before our last segment before we come to a close on the presentation. And again, we're going to drop some links in the chat related to community services and facilities and urban design. And Kamisha will help people with muting and unmuting.
Okay, thank you so much, Sarah. Okay, so we have 5 minutes for our comments. So what do you think, and have we missed anything? Someone in the Jamboard had said, ensure community center is built as promised beside the LRT station at Yorkgate Mall. Okay, we also have accessible charging stations where we can charge your phones. I think it's also nice when designing buildings to have a rooftop garden for the people in the building to be part of a summer garden. Anyone any other comments or ideas of what do they think, and have we missed anything? You can put your ideas on the Jamboard. You can raise your hand and speak in our meeting right now, or you can make a comment in the chat. No one? Okay, we do have, let's see. Okay, so Janelle says what protections are in place? What protections in place that will be that some of the design principles are met and not simply trumped by private developers with very high-rise units. Okay, anyone wants to, and the city want to answer that, or we can all have the answer in our later on.
We'll just come back to that, Kamisha. I think we'll get an answer for you. 1 sec.
Okay.
Thanks.
No problem. Okay, in the meantime, you want to say, Nana, would you like to make a comment? No. Hi, Nana. And someone also made a comment, are the community centers closed still due to the pandemic? Okay, and some limited ask, where can we all find initiative that is being discussed and potentially plans for the community? Okay, and any questions or any comments? Okay, so we can move on if there's no one to say, making a comment on the community service facilities or the urban design. We do have your comments in the chat and on the Jamboard. So we'll continue to heritage, and I believe it's Zara or Miriam to continue. Oh, sorry. Before that, we have Terry raises his hand. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Terry, can you quickly, 30 seconds.
Yes, for urban design and community planning, these are very technical issues. And would it be possible, or would it be in the website somewhere where there can be, where people can access any sort of citations, references, or any other places where people can learn about all of these things, and so that we can go back after this and have more information and have a better understanding of what's being proposed and how we can contribute in the future. It's just a knowledge information and gathering and kind of like for people. Yeah.
Sure. Hi there. I'll jump in for just a second. My name is Vanathy. I'm from Urban Design. And in relation to the question about how, what sort of policies and guidelines we'll be using to hold sort of developers accountable. So the city does have a number of built form guidelines that always have to be referenced and followed. For example, there's guidelines for townhouse developments, mid-rise developments, high or tall building developments. And there are things within those guidelines that mitigate what can be done. So using angular planes, using setbacks, using step backs. So all of those things are elements of the design that are looked at, and they do have to be followed by developers. So there are within the official plan policies adherence to those guidelines as well. So there are, if you go online, Terry, I think, or Terrell, you were asking the question about having some background information. There are those guidelines that you can find on the city planning website. So we can provide a link to that as well, because you are asking some pretty technical questions that you want to have answered. Hopefully that answers some of your questions. But again, even with any proposals that do come in, there is community consultation about anything that is built and would be built in the Jane and Finch area.
Okay, thank you so much. And again, we'll continue with our presentation. And Heritage, thank you everyone for your comments and ideas. And we continue, I believe it's Sarah who's next, or Mayim? Or Leah, want to say something?
I think we have some other city staff who want to respond to some of the questions that have come up in the chat. So just give us a sec.
Okay, no problem. Thank you.
Ronke, are you online?
Hi there. Sorry, the enlarging of the screen makes it hard to find my mute button. Hi, everyone. Good evening. I'm Aderonke Akonde. I'm with the city's Social Development, Finance, and Administration Division. And so great to see so many people out this evening. There were a number of questions about community safety, and so I just wanted to take a moment to respond to some of those. Basically, part of the process that we work through when we're working in any community, but also specifically with respect to this sort of community development plan approach, is engaging with the community on the specifics of some of their safety related concerns, because there might be a number of different ways that those get addressed. Often we're working in partnership with a number of different groups. The police, we within Social Development, Finance, and Administration have a community crisis response group and a community safety and well-being unit. So often we'll engage them as part of the conversation. And then we know.
Oh. Sorry, I'm so sorry. If you're not speaking, can you please mute yourself? Thank you.
Hi there. And then we also know that in many communities, there are very active groups, both at the grassroots and often with agencies that deal with community safety issues. And so we try to bring all those parties together. And, some of the responses might be physical. So changing the layout or lighting or some of those things, and some of the responses may require sort of deeper engagement and initiative. But it comes from the conversation, and I would say that that's definitely a part of how we go forward in building and implementing a community development plan. Thanks for the question.
Yeah, thank you so much. Is there anyone else from the city who would like to make a comment?
We're just dropping some links for people in the chat. So Terrell, things like urban design guidelines that you wanted to have another look at. We put a link to some of those in the chat. There are several different kinds of urban design guidelines that the city has, and we're happy to send you more if you get in touch. And then when people had asked about how to keep on top of what new development applications are coming in, as development applications come into the city, they are publicly available. They're posted online. So Henry has put a link in the chat to the Application Information Center, and you can search there for new applications.
Okay, thank you, Leah.
Yeah,
Donna had made a comment saying, can we have a mailbox put at the entrance of Clubhouse Court? Because in the winter when it's slippery out, they have to walk either to Spin Valley or to mail a letter or down to our letter closer to Shepherd. So maybe that's something that can be put in with the city. They look into it for you, Donna. Okay, thank you for everyone and your comments. Again, we'll continue on with the presentation to Heritage. Either me, you, or Zara could continue. Thank you so much.
Okay. So on the topic of heritage, as part of planning studies like the Jane Finch Initiative, city planning regularly conducts heritage surveys called cultural heritage resource assessments, because understanding the heritage of an area is an integral part of planning for that area's future. So the Jane and Finch Cultural Heritage Assessment is currently underway with the collaboration of a community historian. And it will establish an understanding of the area's history while building on previous work by community members and community researchers. A key component of that work is understanding what you as a community value about the area's heritage, and working with community members to identify potential heritage resources. Ultimately, this will bring an awareness to the history of Jane and Finch, and it will inform future planning policies in the area. And it will also identify some of the properties that will be protected under the Ontario Heritage Act through inclusion on the city's heritage register, or other planning tools. If I can go to the next slide. And lastly, but certainly not least, in order to address the climate emergency, we have several city policies that we can apply to new buildings. And the first is the Toronto Green Standard, which has 63 required performance measures that apply to new buildings, which developers have to meet in order to get their permits. Standards relate to air quality, energy, emissions and resilience, water quality, ecology, and biodiversity. And they're becoming more rigorous over time and are moving towards net zero requirements by 2030. We have higher expectations for how large sites get developed to address the climate emergency. And so we can require things like low carbon energy systems and materials, more resilient buildings and sites, expanding the tree canopy, creating cool and comfortable public spaces, and contributing to enhancing biodiversity. And so this is going to be our last sort of formal pause for feedback before we conclude the presentation. We're going to drop again some heritage and climate action links in the chat so you can comment directly on the Jam boards. And I'm going to pass it back to Kamisha and Maymoon.
Yes, thank you, Zara. Okay, so in regards to our heritage and our climate action, what places are important to your Jane and Finch story? So again, any your ideas, what do you think, and what do you think is missing from the presentation? Anyone, you can put your hands up, or you can write it in the chat, or again, you can write it in the Jam board. Okay, anyone? Okay, all right, doesn't want to say nothing. Okay, well, we thank everyone for your comments today. We do appreciate everyone coming out. So we'll continue then to the next step. Oh, sorry. Oh, there we have one person, Williams. You can go ahead. Go ahead.
I would like to thank everybody who participated in this meeting. And I would like to emphasize the need for our particular neighborhood. We are conformed for 321 families that live in the corner of Jane and Shoreham. And I'm hoping that your efforts make a difference, and especially in that community. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Williams. We appreciate your comment. We also have in the chat, technology is progressing at an exponential rate. Are there any plans to electrify the infrastructure, like building charging station? That's from Song Lim. Donna has stated that she lived in the Jane and Finch area since 1975. And although he has given a bad rep, it's a nice place to live. Yes, I do agree, Donna. I've lived here for 11 years and it's a wonderful place to live. Again, we have Mildred on the line. If you want to make a comment, go ahead, Mildred.
Yeah. I know we are like supporting like walkability, accessibility, bike access, and I think along with that, we should support also like bike repair service. And we have that currently at Tobermory Bike Hub, which they're currently doing a great job, also training, you know, our youth anytime away from like, you know, any games or whatever that is devoted there is like time away from like games or whatever that is like, you know, not productive. So I think there's skills building that's happening there, and at the same time it serves the community for any bike services that's needed.
Okay, thank you so much, Mildred. Okay, we're going to continue on. Thank you again, everyone, for your comments. We greatly appreciate it. And we'll continue on to the next slide, the next steps. Is that Zara or Mayu?
Sorry, I was on mute.
Go ahead, Zara.
Okay, so the next steps are we're going to continue to receive your input online or by phone. If you can submit that by December 5th, and we're going to drop some of the ways that you can get in touch with us in just a couple of seconds. I'm going to paste them in here. If you could do that by December 5th so that they can be included in the phase 1 report from the Jane Finch Centre on Engagement, that would be amazing. And then we will be presenting our ideas report to committee and council in April of 2022. The land use planning ideas report and summary of community input will be going to Etobicoke York Community Council, and the community development plan will be going through Economic and Community Development Committee, but they will meet up again at council. So there's no worry, everything is going to stay together, and all of the ideas will speak to each other in both of the plans. And then in in May 2022, we're going to launch phase 2. There will be more community engagement, and we're going to start drafting the policies for the 2 plans. I'm just going to add all of the ways that you can get in touch with us in the chat here. And that includes adding to the Jamboard. I will add some links for you all. Sorry, one second.
We also have a poll for you guys to tell us what methods, I guess, to keep in touch with the GFI would work best for you. So you can also do that poll as well.
Mm-hmm. So in addition to the poll right now, later on, you can continue to add to the Jamboard if you want some more time with the policy ideas. You can email us anytime at janefinch@toronto.ca. Visit the online engagement page through the main website at toronto.ca/janefinch. And that's also where you can find all of the meeting materials like tonight's presentation, materials from past meetings, as well as any summaries for meetings that you want to check out. You can call me at any time at 416-338-0775. And I'll be doing extended office hours between December 1st and 3rd. That's tomorrow to Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. And if I miss your call, please leave me a message and I'll respond to your voicemail within the following days. And that's it from me. I'm going to send it back to Maymoon to wrap us up and send us on our merry way.
Sure. We actually have Councillor Peruzza with us tonight. I don't know if you want to say any final remarks, Councillor, before we wrap up tonight. I don't know if you're actually online. I can't really, there's like a bunch of mini screens, so I can't really see if you're there or not. But you can unmute yourself if you are. Counselor? Okay, while we're waiting, I mean, I guess for the most part, most people's preferred method of staying involved with JFI is through virtual events, and we'll have all those in the future, I guess, through e-flyer or post online, as most of you again mentioned that you saw this event tonight through social media. So definitely there will be a lot more, I guess, in phase 2 and more to come. But yeah, I don't know.
Sorry,
Yeah.
it's Matthias here. Just got a message from the counselor. He's saying he cannot mute.
Okay.
He's not able to unmute. Are you able to do that as the host?
You need,
yeah, I
you should change the permissions, Moomin. Sorry about that, Matthias.
No worries.
Zoom rather than WebEx.
Now trying to look.
Anthony Peruzza.
Oh, I see it. I asked to unmute. I don't know if that's gonna work, but it might actually work.
If you can make him a host, you may be able to do that.
Sure. Yeah, I'll make him a host. Sure.
Just in the meantime, I think we might have 5 minutes or so if there are any additional questions that people have while the counselor's trying to sort out the muting issue.
Yeah, question actually. Will there be any efforts to, since a lot of people got theirs through social media, will there be efforts to reach out to people who may not have access to dependable internet or social media, or different languages and stuff? Or it could be a paper outreach. I totally would like to just walk around and drop it in different mailboxes. That would be great. If there's translations or anyone else who could help and reach out to more people so that there's more input, because if it's just all of us, I think we're fortunate enough to be in a slightly privileged position to be online here, and I mean, that's great, but it's their community too, and I'm sure there's a lot of experiences that's not being shared because they're not included in this, so that would be good.
Yeah, so I can respond to that, and if I forget anything, my colleagues feel free to jump in to add. So some of the analog ways that we connected with everyone is to make sure that we're mailing every both resident and business address in the area. And included on the flyer is some translated text that tells people how to connect with us if they need translation services or any kind of accommodation, as well as if they need hard copies of the materials. And that's important because it means we can send people the presentation, and it also gives them the ability to call me or other members of my team if they need to have a longer conversation to have some of their questions answered. What that will look like in phase 2 when we get into some of the more detailed work, those are some of the things that we need to continue to have discussions about. But if anybody has ideas, they're absolutely welcome to email us at janefinch@toronto.ca or give me a call at 416-338-0775.
So Matthias, I made the counselor co-host now, but I don't know if it's gonna work.
It hasn't. I've contacted we've been back and forth texting, and he hasn't been able to get off of mute. So he wanted me to apologize for folks not able to make some final remarks and comments. I'm going to drop my email for anybody that wants to contact Councilor Peruzza's office and any details and any of the questions they had and any of this. I want to thank everybody for participating. This is actually a very interesting, deep, meaningful conversation online, which is always complicated. I'm going to agree with Harold. It's not always easy to have these type of conversations online, and almost every single time we meet with the organizers for this, our first question to them is, when can we meet in person? Because we miss having these type of community conversations in a different type of setting that's accessible to other folks. So thank you, everybody. Thank you to organizers, city staff, Memu, folks at Jane and Finch Family and Community Center. And again, I'll extend my my thank yous to everybody, and apologies on the technical difficulties.
No worries at all. This is what Zoom and WebEx are all about. No worries at all. Thanks, Matthias. So again, there's lots of ways to continue the feedback or sending in the feedback through email, through phone call. And we also are going to have those Jamboards open until I believe end of day today. So if I'm wrong, then let me know now from City because I've forgotten. But thank you everybody for attending this evening, and please feel free to hopefully follow up and attend future events. So thank you very much, everyone. Have a good night.